Oh my gosh, what did I do? I totally messed that up. I totally did this wrong.
Hi guys, welcome to the channel. This is Yvonne from Ginger Chick Rehab. Thank you for hopping on and checking out what I am up to.
Just recently, I was able to thrift 2 bread boxes. So in today's video, I'm going to share the process with you all of how I'm going to make these over. And actually, I was kind of in desperate need of taking the time to make some over because I have none for sale in our retail booth. And luckily, this one that I just thrifted was in perfect working shape. And I cannot believe what a deal I got for this one. It was $12, but it was 75% off where I bought it from. So what a great deal, especially in this beautiful shape and this size. A lot of times with these type of bird boxes, if I'm going to paint the entire thing, I will actually take it apart. But I see no reason to take it completely apart because I'm just going to do a minimal facelift on this and share it with you. But it does have some heavy top coat on there, and there are some scratches here and there that I want to get sanded smooth. So I'm not trying to get the stain off, I'm just trying to make everything smooth, so I'm just using a 220 grit sandpaper. Now that I have it all sanded, I wasn't quite able to smooth out that very deep impression on the top. So since that is definitely going to be a focal point, since it's the top of the bread box, I'm going to go ahead and fill that in with some wood putty. While the wood putty is drying on the top, I'm going to go ahead and give the rest of the bread box a good cleaning. Nope, I'm not going to be painting the inside of this bread box. It's in actually really good shape. Now, I know my tape job probably looks a little extreme, but I'm going to be spray painting this bread box. So at first I'm going to start off by evening out the porosity. So where I sanded it, I get down to some of the natural wood. You got the original stain that's still left on there, and then you got the wood putty where I filled in that gap. So now I need to go ahead and seal this in with shellac, which is going to even out the porosity and give the paint really something good to grab onto. So I usually do 2 coats of the shellac. And I'm going to be using my True Coat 360 handheld sprayer with some black onyx paint right off the shelf from Walmart. My go-to. I just absolutely love this flat paint, and I just happen to be painting a lot black. Sometimes I wish I had 2 sprayers that I could have one with my black and one with my white, but that's a luxury item that you can just dream of. I do have that little area in the inside that I'm going to have to touch up with a brush after the paint has dried. I want to protect my paint by sealing it in with a top coat of Polycrylic. Now I want to go to my Cricut. I'm going to type out the word bread, try to pick out a font that is large enough that it's not going to fall in the cracks of the rolling part, but still be decorative. almost got ahead of myself as I was taking the tape off. I actually want to go in and distress this piece. I want to show off those beautiful edges. So to protect the front of this from getting scratched up with the sandpaper, I wanted to leave that tape on there. And then after I get all my edges distressed, I'm going to go back in with a fine grit steel wool, make sure that where I distressed it is nice and smooth down, and the rest of the piece is nice and smooth also. And then I like to use the assistance of the, yes, the air compressor to blow out any of that sandy dust. You could use a blow dryer too, just something to blow dry any of the excess sanding off. Now I'm going to move on to applying my stencil. So all I did was weed out my bread from my Oracle 651 permanent vinyl is my go-to for making stencils. I use the transfer tape that has the grid pattern on it so I can hopefully evenly apply my stencil. And now I'm just going to kind of try to center it in between those slats. That's why I said when I was picking out a font, I wanted it big enough that the slats didn't kind of make my wording disappear. This is a personal preference. I always cut out my stencil lettering as close as I can. That just gives me a little bit more visual to be able to center it, and then I just take the time to masking tape off because I know that I'm really close to my letters when I go to apply my paint. So now I'm going to be doing a dry brush technique. I'm using that same black onyx paint. The dry brushing is where I'm taking a stenciling brush that is flat and I'm just putting minimal paint on. I can always go over multiple times, but especially with having slats, I don't want to add so much paint that it goes into those. You're definitely not trying to get into those slats. You'll still see your wording. You just don't want to try to like push any paint into that. The only problem this little drawer front had was where the knob was. Now I'm going to go ahead and replace the knob to update it just a little bit, but I am going to try to see if I can get this little area to stain a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and get it cleaned off, sanded. I'm going to use some of the Howard's Restore product in the dark walnut to see if I can darken it up. If not, I'll always go to my Waverly Antiquing Wax that usually does the trick. Now I thought this hardware is a little bit more updated. I love the antique bronze of it all. Hobby Lobby, 50% off. You gotta love that. So it was like a couple of bucks. And now to finish this bread box off, I'm going to use some of the Varathane natural wax to seal and protect the whole box. Now you'll notice that I ended up changing my mind on the original knob. So when I'm waxing it, it has the original knobs, but at that point I decided I didn't like that one on there. So my second bread box is this one, and I love the way that it opens. I love that you're able to use it for extra shelving on the top. Now it does have which you would think was an issue, but somebody had actually must have chipped at one time, and then they had glued the piece of wood back together. But I'm never intimidated by that. I think I can fix that. Now in this bread box, it's very easy to take the door off. All they're doing for the hinge to make it open and close as a swivel are just some screws. So I'm going to go ahead and get this sanded also. When they glued that wood piece back on, unfortunately it was not glued on very level. So I'm going to concentrate on, since actually it is real wood and not like a veneer board, I should be able to try to get it pretty smooth. And along with doing that, I want to get that original top coat off. So as I'm working on sanding the piece, I'm going to go ahead and use some wood filler. I think I got it pretty flat, so I just now need to fill in that gap. While I'm filling in the gap, I'm going to go ahead and fill in any of the nail holes that are on this piece so they're not noticeable after I get it painted. Now that we're all sanded, we're all cleaned up, I'm going to go ahead just like the previous and I'm going to seal in and even out the porosity of what is wood filler, what is leftover stain, and what is raw wood. A couple coats of shellac will do the job. So here's where I said earlier in the video I wish I could afford to have two sprayers so I could have one with black and one with white. So yes, it'd be a lot of cleaning out just for one item that I am painting white, and at the moment it was only this bread box, but I'm using the Kills paint and primer. It's a ready-to-use paint that I get here locally right off the shelf. It's my go-to. It's white but not that bright white. Absolutely love how this goes on. Now the difference between brushing the item with paint is definitely doable, but when it comes to being able to spray, as like the bread box, one coat was plenty. And if I would have been able to put this in the sprayer and spray it, I could have probably got this job done in 2 coats. It's just the way that the sprayer puts just the right amount of paint on, but when it comes to brushing, a lot of times it'll take 2 to 3 to 4 coats of white to not see the underlying colors and not to have brush strokes. So now it's time to apply my stencil to my drawer front, but I want to go ahead and in my bottle I actually have the KRUD Cutter Deglosser. That way I know that my surface is thoroughly prepped and it's ready to accept the stencil. I didn't want to sand it off. I thought it was in pristine shape, so I just want to make sure that it's super clean. Then here again, I want to add the word bread to this one. I want it to be nice and bold, fill up that what I left wood. I left the face of this one wood, so I wanted to make it big and bold. I have an extra step that I need to do for this bread stencil. I need to spray this with shellac, so it looks like I have a lot of tape on is because I needed to do this because I want to do my lettering white, and a lot of times this older stain will yellow my white paint, so I'm going to go ahead and do a couple coats of this. So I switched over to a Dollar Tree makeup sponge for the next coat, only because the stencil brush was kind of taking more off than putting it on, probably because I had layered the shellac underneath. Now before putting my bread box back together, I want to seal that paint in using some polycrylic, and then after the polycrylic is dry, I'm going to go ahead and give it a coat of the Varathane and the natural wax. I really like to protect my white paint, especially since this is usually a kitchen item. And how many of you all figured out my mess up right off the bat when I was putting the bread word on? Oh my gosh, I was so used to my knob being at the bottom and not the top that yes, I screwed up. I'm like, oh my gosh, I put a stencil on upside down. Oh, so it is actually much easier easier to move the knob than it is to sand that bread stencil off. So yes, I'll figure something out for that, but for right now, I'm just going to make a new hole to put a new knob. And I did actually pick up a new knob for this one at the Hobby Lobby hardware section also. I did attach it, but let's see. So now I had to think of how am I covering up the other hole. I can't wood fill it in, it'd be very obvious. I could color wood fill it in, it wouldn't be quite obvious. But I do have some supplies of some Tim Holtz clearance items that I have really always wanted to do a steampunk piece of furniture, and I've got it in my stash to do. I just have not done it yet. So I think that one of the numbers little plaques is going to work perfect to cover this up. And you know how everything plays with each other. I did not necessarily like the knob anymore, so I had to go into my stash, and luckily I had something that was similar in the color as that label. And then I also had a smaller one that I was able to stick into the inside to cover up the inside hole. And actually I think I like it more than I did the previous, just the porcelain knob.
So thank you so much for watching today's video, guys. And what did you think? Yep, I was kind of in desperate need of some bread boxes. I do have quite a few in my hoard, but since I had just recently thrifted a couple, it was easier to grab those and make those over. Give me a quick comment down below. Have I inspired you in any way to look at secondhand finds in a new way? And again, thank you for being part of our YouTube family. And if you are new and you're checking out this channel for the first time and you liked what you saw, please hit that subscription button along with the notification bell, so you know we've uploaded a new video, and we will see you next time, guys, and you can see what we're up to.